lengkuas dan bumbu-bumbunya, bumbu kuning ya kan. Kayak mana? Apa? Halo teman-teman, kembali lagi di channel Mama Adam. Ini tuh hari Minggu ya, jam 3 hampir mau jam 4, 2 menit lagi jam 4. Jadi kan teman-teman, sebenarnya tadi tuh aku tuh males sekali masak ya kan, pengennya makan yang langsung siap lah gitu, nggak usah pakai masak segala. Tapi gara-gara nengok mukbang di YouTube, jadi pengen aku makan ayam penyet guys, ayam goreng lengkuas. Kebetulan ada lengkuasku yang udah lama di kulkas, nggak pernah aku masak ya kan. Lanjut, hari ini aku tuh masak ayam goreng lengkuas, di lengkuasnya. Tapi tadi udah aku masak ya guys. Jadi ayam gorengnya belum digoreng. Teman-teman, ayamnya udah aku rebus tadi pakai lengkuas dan bumbu-bumbunya, bumbu kuning ya kan. Kayak mana ayam lengkuas lah, teman-teman pasti udah tahu lah ya kan. Kalau di Indonesia kan tinggal beli bumbu siap ya kan teman-teman, enak gampang. Kalau di sini kita harus meracik. Nah ini kalian udah lihat. Terus aku mau buat sambal ayam penyetnya ini. Aku rebus dulu cabenya dan nasinya ini. Aku tadi masak nasi pakai sedikit santan, kayak masak nasi apa namanya kalau di nasi uduk. Susah banget sih. Nah, nasi uduk teman-teman. Oke guys, hari ini aku mau mulai goreng. Sebelum goreng, aku mau naruh tepung sedikit biar jangan meletup tepung terigu. Langsung aja ke sini ya kan, taruh. Dan katanya sih lebih enak pakai tepung ya kan. Oke, kita aduk dulu ayamnya. Ini 2 sendok teh aku buat tepungnya ya guys, karena aku nggak mau yang kayak tebal gitu tepungnya, cuma sekedar aja biar dia jangan meletup. Itu aja sih. Nah ini dia. Kita goreng. Ini bumbunya mau masukin aja semua guys. Untuk bumbu apa namanya, bumbu atasnya itu. Sebenarnya aku udah lama kali pengen masak ayam goreng lengkuas ini ya kan. Tapi di sini tuh nggak ada jual lengkuas, harus ke toko Asia kita, ke toko Cina gitulah. Sementara di kota tempatku tinggal ini jauh kali ke toko Asia, harus ke Birmingham. Nggak ada di sini toko Asia yang jual lengkuas. Jadi kemarin itu, ini udah lebih sebulan karena tahun lalu aku beli, aku masukkan ke freezer kan, aku eskan gitu loh guys, supaya awet. Dan kalian tahu berapa harganya ini? Nih 100 gram, kalian bisa lihat 100 gram kan, 100 gram harganya 1 pound 95 sen. Hampir 2 pound. 2 pound itu sekitar 40.000. Hanya 2 biji. 1 biji udah aku buat ayam, ini sisanya 1 lagi. Kalau jahe di sini murah, teman-teman. Lengkuas yang sulit di sini. Tuh, jadi ini lengkuasnya mau aku masukkan ke freezer lagi, mau aku bekukan lagi ya kan. Ini di sini udah nggak bisa lagi karena udah aku koyak. Oke, masukkan plastik. Sama jahenya. Yang ini aku taruh di atas. Biar awet. Begitulah. Ya kan, kalau kita. Tapi bukan aku aja sih yang kayak gini, teman-teman. Semua istri bule yang tinggal di luar negeri, kalau harta karun dari Indonesia itu pasti dibekukan, mau itu cabe, lengkuas, ya kan, bawang, pokoknya apapun itu yang dibawa dari Indonesia yang sulit didapat di negara suami itu dieskan, teman-teman, biar awet. Nah, terus kadang daun namanya itu yang tuh buat bubur, guys, daun pandan, nah, serai itu diawetkan. Nih, aku mau giling dulu ya. Nih, aku masak sambal bawang. Oke, kita masukkan ini sambal yang udah rebus. Ini pedas sekali loh. Royco. Bukan Royco sih, ini apa namanya ini? Maggi gitu. Penyedap rasa lah pokoknya kan. Masukkan dulu. Ya. Terus aku nanti mau makan pakai lalapan. Karena nggak ada sayur. Daun apa namanya, ketumbar. Nah, ini dia lalapan. Makan mewah. Makan kita. Ada mau lagi?
Zack asked. Middle E grade. Alea laughed.
Mana ada mau ini paprika?
I'm already late E grade. Work hard.
Paprika.
Pass you by. The next moment, she was gone.
Mana dia ini?
Chapter 14. The Atwood Empire. Wait, you're late E grade? Zack exclaimed. But Alea was already gone, and there was no answer forthcoming from within his mind. It really looked like she was unable to communicate freely just yet. Zack couldn't sense her presence at all in his mind, except for that intangible bond he had with his other spirit tools. Even if she disappeared as she had after their previous short conversations, Zack wasn't worried anymore. Like Alea said, she was healed, and she was even making progress on her cultivation. And truthfully, as much as Zack loved to hear her voice again, he was somewhat relieved that Alea wasn't able to freely speak in his head. It wasn't that he had a bunch of secrets he needed to keep from her. They were way beyond that point by now. It was rather about the feeling of having his mind invaded. Even if Alea obviously was a hostile presence in his mind, telephone calls, they had to nudge his mind, and he had to accept their attempt to communicate and make the next few minutes stay acquainted with his upgraded weapon. The fact she'd managed to leapfrog all the way from peak F-grade swallowed since its formation, Zack wouldn't be surprised if it became a D-grade spirit tool. At first, Zack had been worried that the chain attached to the haft of his new benefit was thinner than the other ones he used to attack his hip. In fact, it could even be considered a strength rather than a weakness. First of all, the chain constantly danced next to the handle, acting a bit like a crossguard. It probably wouldn't be able to block it all out straight, but having some men on the other side of the courtyard, and the axe shot forward like an arrow. At the last second, Zack slightly nudged her before drawing an down a neighboring tree instead. It was a fusion between his understanding of axes. Axe was back in his hand as the chain retracted with such speed that it almost looked like teleportation. These types have
I put sambal as well.
strong suit. Triv hesitated. Well, there's only you around, Zack shrugged. Don't worry.
spicy.
However, try as they might, the coffin effortlessly dragged the ghost closer and closer by the looks of it. Zack would have to find someone stronger to test it out properly. All right, thank you. You don't need to wait around here. Zack's head once more returned to his hand. With Alea having created a perfect axe for his undead form, it looked like one of his issues had been dealt with as well. For one, the undead generally didn't use primal series weapons because of the very affinity clash Maroon exhibited. Secondly, if he wanted to keep his two sides separate in the eyes of outsiders, he couldn't be running around with Maroon's bite both as undead and human. It had already become an issue in Twilight Harbor, where he'd been forced to get a substitute to avoid getting found out by Thea.
Apa nak?
But using a
Ayam, mau ayam?
quality substitute to his real weapons was a deadly gambit, one which could cost him
Tapi pedas ini loh, nak.
if he suddenly ran into a powerful enemy. Now, all those issues were solved, with him having full
Iya.
use for both his sides.
Nah.
Varun's bite and Vivi when fighting as a human, and Love's Bond taking both those roles in his undead form. Over the next few hours, he made a couple of other discoveries. The most obvious one was that the spirit tool had actually lost its shield form. Now, Love's Bond could only take on its backpack and necklace forms. In return, the main chains of the coffin had become disgustingly sturdy, and Zack wasn't sure if even a middle D-grade cultivator would be able to damage the limb. Along with a massive boost in durability, they'd also become more pliable, responding far quicker to his mental commands. This had dramatically improved the defensive capabilities of the Lynx, and essentially removed the need for a shield. In return, it cost a lot more miasma to manipulate the
How
chains,
this?
but that wasn't surprising. And with his
Chicken.
stockpiles, he would be able to use them continuously for a whole day before running out of energy. Finally, he discovered that Blighted Cut, his base skill that had been somewhat underutilized lately, had almost been reborn into a weapon. With Blighted Cut activated, both his axe and the chain attached turned
No, Adam.
black, and the gleaming edge of the axe started releasing such potent
Adam making mess.
toxins even Zack was appalled. If Gorhue was good at taking out weaker enemies, then Blighted Cut had become a terror for infighting, which was perfect for Zack, who'd spent years working on his technique. Part of the effect came from his improved Tao, but it was also obvious that his spirit tool amplified the corrosive effect of the skill. In a perfect world, Zack would have wanted to spend a couple of months getting properly reacquainted with Love's Bond, after having used chain box for years. But a buzz from a communication crystal forced him back to reality and his many duties. Lord Barry, it's an honor, the Stargazer said with visible glee as Zack stepped into her office 20 minutes later.
Ganggu mamanya.
The Stargazers, Abby muttered. But it's also a matter of convenience. We have access to some functionality that others don't. We are also controlled, only beholden to you, and limited in our actions by the system. Having outside administrators at the heart of your government, even if we don't have any de facto control, would prevent corruption to a certain degree. All right. I'll look at candidates. Zack smiled, waving away the Stargazer's explanations. More importantly, have you received the information about the quest I completed on Ensolis? About what to do with
Belajar makan lalapan.
Abby asked. I got it. What's your opinion? Zack asked curiously. Oh, such a potent miniature world that
Udah lah. Ayo punya Adam ini.
powerful at
Kamu
all.
nala.
Makes sense.
Nah.
Zack nodded. I guess I'm going with option 3 then. Can I pick a location right now? 1 second. Mine. And it cannot be directly controlled by another empire. No problem. Zack slowly nodded. I haven't figured out what
Udah itu daging itu. Ini daging Nono.
on the matter.
Ini tulang.
I'll deal with a few days visiting the strongest factions of Earth, where Abby and his other subordinates made sure his appearances were well publicized. on, while part of it was distractions. Considering his rule over
Apa?
was all but official before and
Pedas.
there were some grumblings
Nah.
over the new taxation rates, but those grumblings quickly died after the contribution tokens started rolling out just like on installation. With the number of official citizens of his family
Kepedasan.
from millions to billions in just 1 week, Zach was forced to adjust the contribution rules to a slightly less
Spicy.
generous model. Luckily enough, Villari had already expected such a change, so the missives on the solicits had been still
He wants more.
to adapt to the new
Udah
system.
nah, nanti kepedesan lagi Adam.
The Earthlings who weren't part of
Ayun
this
na.
action only
Minute
got the
dulu,
same deal as the Mavai humans on Ensolas. They only had access to the basic items in the contribution store, and would have to rack up a lot of merits before they unlocked the real treasure.
Udah.
It was still easier to gain contribution points in the Atwood Empire compared to most,
Tadi kan sama mak kasih.
though fewer would benefit from it. Zach had, under the suggestions from Abby and the Golden, it was meant to push people harder where they
Lagi?
perhaps needed to take some risks against the beasts or the
Lagi?
wilderness to keep up. If they succeeded, they'd both be tempered and gain contribution. If they failed, they might be hurt or even die. It was harsh. The
Iya,
secular
enak kan?
sector was about to enter a war that would last God knows how long. Zach suspected it would be decades at the least. And a few more generations of zombies had successfully been turned into revenants. With the population booming, there was finally enough manpower to expand beyond just having an army. Proper towns had appeared next to the military bases, which held as many non-combat classes as warriors. The first generation of natural-born undead children had appeared on Elysium over the last year as well, with the first set of revenants having managed to reach late E grade. Even then, his undead cities were still quite small and limited in scope, a far cry from Port Atwood. Finally, Zach toured his archipelago, and just like the missive
Ini nah ini.
his
Itu ada cabai.
kingdom had become the
Ini ada
scene
cabai.
between Elysium and Pangea, with almost half of the islands having turned deathitude. It was a bit inconvenient for his faction, which had spread to almost all the islands, but there wasn't much of a loss in the long run. Devi had avoided getting their island impacted, and Zach decided to make a short visit to meet with his old allies. Ibtep was still in the underworld, but he was soon led to the inner chambers where Nanette waited. The former anointed was still almost 3 meters tall, but their aura didn't feel nearly as imposing as the first time they met. Turned out that the spiritual leader of the small hive had already encountered a bottleneck at the middle E grade, with their remaining nodes being too weak to open either through cultivation or force. In other words, the chances of Nanette ever reaching the peak of the grade were essentially nil. It was an unwelcome reminder of the reality of a cultivator. For every grade you passed, you would leave most of your companions behind.
Apa minum nak minum?
Grade was
Minum nak minum.
keep a vast majority of cultivators, and that would become especially apparent now that Earth had lost its origin now and integration-related opportunities. Nanette was the first such person he encountered, but there would surely be more. Don't mourn for me. No one smiled upon seeing Zach's expression. The fact that I am able to live past the crusade is already a blessing. When it is my time, it will be weakness leaving the hive. But I hope you can help our future generations adapt to this new reality, as we are finding it
Enak kan?
difficult on our own. What do you mean? Zach asked with some confusion.
Nah.
Able to nurture the kind of warriors needed to meet the challenges of this wide world. We are a communal race, where the hive is all. However, the pursuit of the Tao is ultimately a personal journey of discovery, which is putting us at a disadvantage. Nanette sighed. Zach immediately understood what Nanette was talking about. The thinking of the average Jix warrior was extremely rigid, and Jix like Ibtep and Ruba were extremely rare. If cultivation didn't require insights into the Tao, they would probably have left the humans on Earth far behind with their one-track mentality. But now they found themselves stuck. Without the boost of origin Tao, how many would even be able to form Tao seeds and make it past the F grade? Your
Your subordinates have graciously accepted warriors into your institutions, but we can see that their performance is not very impressive. We have also tried setting up warrior camps both here and in the underworld, with the goal of nurturing the world.
No need to give up just yet, Zack said.